name is Bryan Peach. I was raised in the United States, born in Korea. I think I'm the only adoptee on this side of the panel. I moved to Korea in July of 2021 for work. I got a job. I'm a journalist. I was working in the United States, and then there was a posting for a job at the Washington Post, and so I moved here for that job in July 2021. I came here for work, but I also came here for personal reasons, to see Korea for the first time since leaving as a child. Also to reactivate my Korean citizenship, which takes about a little bit less than a year and is a lot easier if you're in Korea. And so even though I came here mostly for professional reasons, I don't think I would have come here if I didn't have, obviously, the connection to Korea and the things that I wanted to do here. So yeah, I've been here for, I guess, a little bit over a year. I guess I'll talk about dual citizenship, and it's like my relationship with it, but then also like writing about it. So I always had kind of grown up like knowing that maybe it was possible, like if you kind of like do a little bit of Googling about like adoptees, Korean citizenship, like there's stuff out there. Most of it I think is from Goal. And so I knew that it was a far off possibility that I could kind of just like flip a switch and get my citizenship back. And that was always kind of in the back of my mind. I have like friends who are dual citizens, not through adoption, but just, you know, parents of different nationalities. And just like the thought that I could have an additional nationality was always in the back of my mind. I grew up in a very Midwestern town, very American upbringing. So even though I was exposed to Korean culture by way of the adoptee community, if we went to Korean restaurants, I learned a little bit of Korean as a child. I obviously was not raised here. I didn't grow up speaking Korean. So, you know, I went through life, and my adoption was always part of my life, but never a large, significant portion of like my day was not spent thinking about adoption. But as I mentioned earlier, I've always wanted to go back to Korea, and so like the stars kind of aligned with the job that I now hold. And so since moving here for that, I took advantage of the opportunity being here to reinstate my citizenship, which, if you're not familiar with the process, thanks to people who have come before me, I think some of them may be in this room, was a very easy process for me. I basically applied and then got a text message from the Korean government like 7 months later, just telling me that I had now become a Korean citizen, which I almost deleted the text message because I thought it was spam. And thankfully I translated it and did not delete it. And then I went to the immigration office, and what I wrote about in the piece is like it was very transactional because of COVID. They basically there was like a bank teller, and there was a sheet of plexiglass, and they just like gave me my materials and a mug, and the mug didn't even have anything about Korea on it. It was just a mug. I don't know why they did that. But yeah, it's I think like dual citizenship is a really if you only have one citizenship, I think a lot of people kind of aspire towards holding dual nationality, and so it's always kind of like interesting to people, I think. So that was like the mechanism through which I told my story about, you know, coming back to Korea and what this process has been like for me. Luckily, I have a staff job at the Washington Post, and so it was simple for me to go to the opinion section and pitch them, you know, my essay. And thankfully, they were super receptive. The editor was super, super great. Immediately, they were really into it. And I felt really privileged to be able to just do that internally and automatically be given the platform, because it's not always that easy to just like have your essay on this like super personal kind of niche topic just disseminated. It actually did really well in terms of like how many people saw it, and there were a lot of comments which I also kind of wanted to mention. Like if you go to the like it can be kind of like triggering, honestly, like looking at the comments. It's a lot of like, because when you put something so deep like that onto the world, like talking about, I mentioned like why I got my dual citizenship and like what it's like for me being in Korea, and we can go into that later too, but people don't always get it, even if they are parents of adoptees or they're adopted themselves. Like just because you have some tangent relationship to it doesn't mean that you will understand one person's story. Like, I do not understand other adoptee stories. I don't understand their stories just because I have like some sort of linkage. But yeah, the reaction was decently mixed. I think a lot of people were saying, you know, because I was kind of lamenting in the piece about how hard it is to be in Korea as a Korean adoptee. It's really hard to be in Korea as a foreigner. It's hard to be in Korea as a Korean American. So to be Korean adoptee is like, it's just kind of strange. I know Jane Jong Chunkai quoted her in the piece. She has written a couple of books on being adopted. And she said that, you know, being Korean without speaking Korean is kind of like being like a chicken that barks, or like a fish with like a human head, I think is the quote, which is how I feel pretty much every day here. So anyway, I'm kind of going on and on, but the feedback was kind of a lot of people saying that I should be more grateful to my American parents, that, you know, just any like weird comment that you can think of like was on that piece. So if you want to get a sense for how little some people understand the nuances of adoption, you can go look at the comments on that story. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting for me to hear from everybody, because you kind of forget that like adoption, especially like interracial, international, and like Korean adoption especially, like I interviewed someone for a story about adoptees, and I think it was the first time that I really realized it, but she said, you know, adoption starts with loss, adoption starts with trauma, and it's very true, but also like that trauma is like ongoing and it's intergenerational, and it like comes down, and like there is a question, like I'm just thinking, hearing everybody's experiences, like where does it end, right? Because maybe the people next to me will have children, and then they will have children, and they will have children, and it's always going to be this thing, whether it's a stain or it's something that is really appreciated. But you know, like we've all just had like really weird experiences dealing with, you know, Korea doesn't know what to do with us, even though they're the ones that did this to us. So, you know, we've all had, you know, different experiences, but it's been, I think, like weird to deal with the Korean bureaucracy, because no one anywhere, it feels like, knows how to deal with our situation. Even if like they're simple to us, it's like unfathomable to so many Koreans. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of like touch on the point that like what I'm hearing from people is that like no matter your relationship with adoption, like it does like really like trickle down, and this is the first time that I'm really feeling, you know, it is, people can say like, oh, well, you know, the adoption was this thing that happened through a period of like a few decades, and now it's kind of slowing down. But, you know, it's permanent, it's forever, because, you know, we're people who will have kids, who will have kids, who will have kids. So it is kind of troubling to think about that like, if it's difficult for us to deal with adoption, like that problem won't go away. And so I think that's why it's even more important for us to be having these conversations.